Very good afternoon. Thanks for joining us here on The Big Story. I'm Afrida Rahman Ali. Let's begin with the latest that we are getting on the COVID crisis in India. Well, our focus on Big Story today is to bring you stories of fraud and forgery, of black marketing and hoarding that has become quite rampant. We are getting reports from multiple locations of how fraudsters are now engaging in these criminal activities at the expense of helpless people who are looking for medical help. So there's outright criminality and fraud unfolding from various parts of the country in these unprecedented times when people are scrambling for medical essentials. What's happening in Delhi is that police have arrested 3 fraudsters selling fire extinguishers in the garb of oxygen cylinders. The police have in fact recovered 532 fire extinguishers and 26 oxygen gas cylinder nozzles during a raid. And that has now alarmed the authorities on the level and extent of this racket that is clearly operating in Delhi. Alok is joining us with more information. So Alok, you've brought us this information about these raids that were conducted, and look at the scale of recovery. We're talking about 532 fire extinguishers. Were they being sold, or were they being in any way marketed as oxygen cylinders? Because that would be a huge worry and pose huge dangers to patients who are looking desperately for oxygen.
Well, yes, and in fact, they have already sold many of these fire extinguishers, which they sold in the form of oxygen cylinders. Remember, it is very dangerous, and in fact, there are cases where it exploded as well. So that is why police always says that it should not be used, and it is completely illegal. So Delhi police got the information that one of the NGO who bought some of the oxygen cylinders, uh, these fire extinguishers, and they found out that it was basically extinguishers, but they wanted to buy the oxygen cylinders. Then because it was suspicious, so definitely they immediately informed the local police. Then local police, that is Shadra district, they laid a trap in Alipur area, and then they managed to nab these 3 persons. In fact, the main accused, who was the owner of this factory, he would work by converting these fire extinguishers into these oxygen cylinders, and 2 persons who were the helpers, they were also helping him. 532 these fire extinguishers are recovered from their possession. Police say that they have already sold to many people, so that is why their interrogations are still on, and the police is trying to ascertain where they have sold, so that they could inform the person that they are using this dangerous thing. Back to you.
Yes, completely taking advantage of the situation, and of course knowing that people are desperate for oxygen. There are some fraudsters out there who are trying to sell these fake oxygen cylinders. Like Alok said, fire extinguishers in the garb of oxygen cylinders are being sold. Thanks for joining us. Let's lay out for our viewers the level and extent of profiteering that is going on, large-scale profiteering that is rampant. Earlier, we brought stories about ambulances overcharging, private hospitals making a killing out of COVID patients, but this has gone beyond that. Now we are talking about outright criminal activities, illegal sale of oxygen cylinders, concentrators, remdesivir, and life-saving drugs. From Nasik, again, police has busted a black marketing racket where tocilizumab life-saving medicine was sold for as much as 2 lakh rupees. The medicine originally cost 40,000 rupees per strip. In Delhi, 419 oxygen concentrators were recovered, which were being black marketed for as high as 70,000 per concentrator. So it's not just oxygen cylinders, it's also the oxygen concentrators, which are in huge demand, and those are selling in the black market for a very steep price. In Lucknow, 115 oxygen cylinders were seized from a house on Tuesday. 500 oxygen cylinders were seized from Satna in Madhya Pradesh. Apart from oxygen, illegal sale of remdesivir is rampant. In Chennai last week, a doctor was arrested for selling the antiviral drug for 20,000 rupees. Similar instances in Delhi, where a gang was caught selling the drug for 50,000 rupees. This is remdesivir we are talking about. In April last month, the police even cracked down on a fake remdesivir factory. So there are these makeshift factories that have also erupted to produce remdesivir, which is of course fake, and it could be dangerous to life. So that is the situation on ground. Let me welcome the experts that we have on the panel this afternoon. Arvind Kumar Jain, former DGP of Uttar Pradesh, joining us, and we'll also be joined by Neeraj Kumar, former Commissioner of Delhi Police. Good afternoon, Mr. Jain. If you heard our reports, I mean, you would be aware that quite clearly states are not being mindful enough of these kind of fraud and forgery that is going around, hoarding and black marketing that is rampant. Now some raids are being conducted. There's been a crackdown, as we reported, the recoveries that have been done. But what I want to understand from you is that, you know, there are people out there who are making a killing, literally, out of other people's miseries, putting other people's lives at risk. Now, you know, for this to happen, do you think that the law enforcement was not active enough? How are these criminal gangs and networks operating in this manner, sir?
UP police was involved in local bodies. Counting was going on. It's I think over only yesterday night. All the results have been declared. Then UP police has to enforce lockdown also, daytime also, night also, because there is very strict lockdown till May. So police force is engaged in all these activities, and whenever they are getting information, credible information, raids are being conducted, and police is trying to do the level best. STF has also been involved in the process by Chief Minister. So raids are going on, but what can be done if we lack national character, if we are engaged in hoarding, profiteering, and all sorts of illegal activities, we are taking advantage of less people. So it's very shameful. What else can I say? And
Yes.
there should be crackdown. There should be crackdown, and there is crackdown on such people. They should be
No,
put
what I want
under
to also
national
know, Mr. Jain, is that often enough what happens is that you catch the small fish, but there is a mastermind out there. There's a real kingpin out there who's orchestrating this whole thing. So I want to understand that, you know, of all the reports that we are getting, it may not even be the full picture. We don't know how big these networks are. So how often do you think that, you know, police gets to the bottom of the case and weeds out these elements? Or is it just content catching those who are executing these kind of conspiracies and not the real guys behind the scenes?
I don't think very big networks are involved in this, because they have come up in the last few days only. The small factories, they have been converted into oxygen filling units, and fake remdesivir injections are being. I don't think any big factory is involved in manufacturing of fake medicines or. For example, you see fake reports are being given for testings. So I don't think very big labs are involved in this. Small time labs are there which are taking advantage of people, and they are doing it at local level.
Okay.
I don't think very gangs are involved in this.
But when we talk about Uttar Pradesh, sir, like you just heard, and we've reported on this in Lucknow on Tuesday, 115 oxygen cylinders were seized from a single house. This is a huge scale we are talking about. It obviously involves more than one person, you know. So obviously, even though you might say that this may not be an established gang or a huge network, these may be small gangs, but there are quite a few people involved in this. Do you believe that these are regular petty criminals? Or these are just people who have now, seeing the situation, decided to embark on these kind of criminal activities?
I don't think they are petty criminals. There are several people, they are out of job these days because of lockdown and because there is a slowdown in economy. So several people, they have made this their profession in these pandemic times. They are involved in such activities. They are crooked people. Crooked people, they have they thought that they will make fast buck out of it during pandemic, and that's why I think they are doing it, and police is doing the right thing.
Yes.
Whenever they are getting information, they are conducting raids.
Yes, let me welcome Mr. Neeraj Kumar also on the show. Mr. Kumar, in Delhi, like we reported earlier, the police has recovered 532 fire extinguishers and 26 oxygen gas cylinder nozzles. So what people are doing essentially is that selling fire extinguishers in the garb of oxygen cylinders, since there is such a huge crunch and people are desperate for oxygen. But my reporter was also saying that this could be so dangerous because tampering with medical equipment is something that, of course, puts lives at risk. Do you believe, Mr. Neeraj Kumar, that there's enough focus on this area, or do you think that the authorities are not looking into this area seriously enough to crack down on these elements, owing to which this has grown in leaps and bounds?
No, that is not true. The authorities are fully cognizant of these activities. And only today I heard that a similar raid was conducted in Lodi Colony Market from a restaurant where they seized a number of oxygen concentrators. And surprisingly enough, the man who is behind that racket is a very well placed businessman of Delhi, well reputed. He has a chain of optical shops, and it is a great pity that a person who is so rich has to take advantage of these troubled times to make a fast buck. It is deeply distressing to see
Yes.
that carbon dioxide cylinders are being passed off as oxygen cylinders. Medicines are being passed off as remdesivir, and so on and so forth. What could be more reprehensible at these troubled times than to indulge in this kind
Yes.
of black marketing?
Yes, and that's precisely what we were talking about, Mr. Kumar, before you joined the conversation, that these are not necessarily all petty criminals. And you pointed out that there are established businessmen who have no dearth of wealth, but they are still indulging in these activities, and probably they are responsible for activating these kind of gangs. Now, what becomes rather serious right now is that, yes, I do understand the law enforcement has got a lot of responsibilities enforcing COVID protocols. In certain cases, like in UP, there were panchayat polls. In Bengal, there were elections. But nevertheless, there has to be some vigilance in place. What kind of system, Mr. Kumar, do you think can be put in place now after we have come across these kind of activities? Can anything be done further to weed out these elements?
Well, as has already been said, whenever an information is received, it is for the police to act promptly on it, not to look the other way. And I don't think there has been a single instance where the police has looked the other way. It has taken it very seriously, despite the fact that its hands are full. It is enforcing COVID lockdown. It is also performing duties at hospitals. It is there at various pickets. And besides its normal duties of prevention and detection of crime. So this important aspect is being
Yes.
paid adequate heed, as is clear from the various incidents that have been reported. And in each one of them, the police has done very well to react swiftly and to catch the culprits.
Right. Mr. Jain, your last word to you on what can be done for prevention of these kind of crimes, because already we are reeling under such a severe crisis, a public health emergency, adding upwards of 4 lakh cases per day. People are desperate for medical help. Now, under the circumstances, if you also have to deal with fraud and forgery, that further sets us back, Mr. Jain. What do you think should be done for prevention?
A very stern action. UPCM has ordered that NSA should be enforced against all these criminals. They shouldn't come out on bail, and all such properties which are there should be confiscated. A decision has been taken in UP to distribute all these cylinders to various chief medical officers so that these can be used and they don't lie in malkhana, just rotting there. So the right decision has been taken. Very stern action is required, and public should be encouraged. Public should be encouraged. There should be a helpline. Public should be encouraged to give information. Their identity should be kept secret. They should be rewarded. Immediate raids should be
Yes.
carried out. So this is the solution and there is no other solution, because
Right.
these are not established. All these gangs, they have just come up in the last 10-15 days. I had not heard of these gangs in the past in UP.
Right. But then there are unscrupulous businessmen who, like Mr. Kumar said, wants to make a fast buck, and they see that the situation is conducive to make some money, some quick money. And that is the kind of mindset which actually is causing this kind of criminal activities to happen in our society. And like you said, public participation is also important, which again I would like to highlight. The whole idea of doing this is to warn our viewers as well that beware of these fraudsters who are on the prowl, who are trying to sell you a fake oxygen cylinder or a fake drug. Make sure that you do enough checks on these products that you're purchasing, or if somebody is overcharging you, that must be reported. I thank Mr. Arvind Kumar Jain and Mr. Neeraj Kumar for joining us this afternoon. Let's take a short break here on The Big Story. News and updates continue on the other side.